Some glitchy stuff when they change stuff, right?
lately.
Oh,
Yeah,
you did it. You did.
I think we're live on it's on my business page. So I will move some stuff around and then live stream it onto the membership. Yeah, we are live, you guys. Happy Monday. I hope you guys had an awesome 4th of July and um welcome today, Sarah Griffith. I am trying to share this onto our group page also. So hold on, you guys, while I deal with the tech. I'm really sorry about all this. I don't know why this has gotten so complicated,
Well,
but
blame the powers of Facebook.
yeah, I figured it out for a while, and then all of a sudden I couldn't do it anymore. And I must have screwed up my settings or
Oh,
something. Because
I changed it.
yeah, you end up like setting up your settings into, okay, like group page. There we go. So we are now, or we should be, live streaming in the group page and on the main business page. And let me pull our video back up. And it says live right in the corner.
It did say that for me, yes.
Yeah. And now my dog is looking at me with food smeared all over his face.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
I'm going to spotlight Sarah and myself, and then we'll get started. Whoops, let me pull up the Facebook page from my cell phone so I can see your comments. Or, guys, this stuff is stressing me out. I wish it wasn't, but it is.
Tech problems.
Stressing me out. There we go. How many years have I gone live and then Facebook has to like change it all? But Sarah works, Sarah is the animal synergist. She also is a writer for Adored Beast. She and Julianne Lee have been friends, partners. I don't know if you're really a partner, but you guys kind of partner on stuff. You write her blogs often, and you are her equine rep for Adored Beast. You also have a diverse background in animal nutrition, and you've also studied equine nutrition. So you do dogs, cats, and horses. You are a doctor of classical homeopathy. Sarah Griffith has been a return member, a return guest. I think you've been our most popular guest, actually.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
you're the only one that's done 3 Facebook lives with us.
well, that's
So
great.
I know. So Sarah, it's so great to see you again and welcome back to the Holistic Animal Insights private membership.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's really great to see you. It's been a little while.
It has, and we missed you. I've always been like, hey, where's Sarah? Where's all those writing videos that she used to post?
Yeah. I have changed trajectory a little bit lately and I've been doing a lot of research and development. So and actually immersing myself in some new things that are new learning for me. So as I'm learning those things, I've been posting more and more about that and just kind of trying to change it up to see what my followers are interested in and what my clients are interested in. And I've been on this kind of crazy journey with my horse, and we've kind of gone through a bit of a paradigm shift. So it's been so much learning so quickly that I actually started doing some course creation because I in what I found over the last 2 or 3 years as I've been researching for Adored Beast and you know, experiencing what works and what doesn't work for my horse. I'm also doing a mentorship program with an equine veterinarian now. So I'm shadowing her 2 days a week, which is quite helpful. Just to get more acquainted with like equine pathologies. And then I've also been diving in a little bit to a project I was invited to come in and do on equine dissection. So they asked me to come in and do some GI system dissections for horses. So yeah, so I'm still in training for all of those things. And then also in training for herbalism for horses too. So changed my whole way of gardening and you know, like a whole bunch of different things. So but that's all risen out of like my desire to help animals. And you know, I've been really gut focused because Julie is my mentor. Um, and realizing through all my research that especially for horses that the gut is like the central hub. And you know, we are really having a really hard time figuring out how to take care of them so that they don't have these digestive issues. And there's not a lot of conventional solution to this issue. Everything is like with gastric ulcers and you know, colic and these pretty serious problems that horses are having at these insanely high rates.
Right.
And so when I was reading and I found all the statistics on like how many horses are having these problems and what the rate is, and metabolic disorders as well, I just was like, basically this really isn't acceptable. So we need to actually change this. And there's so many people doing pet, you know, in the pet space, like Dr. Connor and you know, Julie, and like there's all these people doing
Karen and Rodney. Yeah.
Karen and Rodney and Forever Dog and all these things. So I feel like horses don't really have that same
I agree.
honoring of their being that's happening in the pet space. So even though I am really passionate about the pet space still, and I do one-to-ones and I help people with that because I have some pretty solid protocols that I use now. And I didn't really have that same confidence with the horses. So the last 3 years, I've just been, you know, really into the research on like what is happening health wise, what's the state of health for horses, and why is that happening, and what can we do to make things better. So that's kind of what I've been up to. And then, you know, they're an herbivore, so they're completely different than these carnivores. So that but it's still species specific.
Right.
So
Right.
that's
And
focus
so
on.
what we do for dogs and cats don't always necessarily work so well because their GI tract is crazy long.
Yes. Yeah.
And
And it's actually an evolutionary miracle, like the equine digestive system. And now that I've gotten to dissect a few of them, and see the inside of it and what it looks like and how big it is and these chambers and the microbial fermentation capacity of this system, and like how it evolved, because I've gotten really into like how did this go from this tiny little dog like animal that horses used to be like 200 million years ago to now where they're huge and they've this huge cecum. They have the biggest cecums of any species besides the rhino and other hindgut fermenters. And then their hindgut is just, it's massive. Like I could almost fit inside of it. It's so big. So
wow, really?
it's huge.
I
So, and the surface area and the microbial power of that system, though it's really, really amazing that they can, you know, digest these things that, you know, fibers that we could not digest, and their metabolism is so different from ours because of that. Um, because the microbiome is so dynamic, and it can change in relation to the environment, which in this case would mostly be food and other types of intake through the digestive system, the microbiome can change status within 24 hours or even less. So
So Sarah, I actually wonder if fly spray throws their gut microbiome off.
it probably is a contributor for sure. There's many, and now that epigenetics is such a huge field of study and really well respected. If you don't know what epigenetics is, it's the study of how genes are expressing in relation to the environment, and in nutrigenomics, which is an offshoot of epigenetics, you're studying actually food, how food helps turn genes on and off, or helps them express in different ways depending on what you eat. So there's lots of that research going on, and it's fairly new. And a lot of this stuff isn't being taught to medical professionals, even in the human space, right? So forget animals. So I've really been trying to do a lot of comparisons between, like, okay, here's the stuff that they're studying about humans and how important these things are in the human space, the environment, your diet, your sunlight exposure, your all of these things that we know are extremely important for even socialization and
Well,
all these energetic inputs and like
I have to say, Julianne Lee was a guest on the Cancer Free Canine Summit when I did that, and she talked about suppression and the effects of suppression, and that literally blew my mind. Like, that changed my whole paradigm about animal health, human health, horse health, of how suppressive horse training can be, how suppressive being in a box stall can be, and the end product of suppression creating depression, and suppression creating lamenesses and mental illnesses and all of that. So I just thank you to Julianne for that, because she rocked my world on that and changed everything for me. So
yeah, and I mean, you're a homeopath too, right? So you understand, like, in the miasms of the cancer miasm, the main theme is suppression, right? So, and because we have so much cancer in humans and dogs and all of these domestic species, we are suppressing in every single solitary possible way. It's not just immune suppression, it's like emotional and spiritual suppression and freedom. And like in horseland, it's friends, freedom, forage versus like forced training and box stalls and social isolation and timed feedings and all of these things that we do to them, right? And one kind of food every day, all the time. And in the dog space and the cat space and the human space, we're pretty more well advanced in knowing that, like, we need variety, we need diversity, we need access to nature, we need socialization if we're a social species. Even my cats love to be social, like, and there's not
I had a dog, a corgi, and he was my solo dog, but I found another corgi, like a two-eyed, three-legged corgi, running down the freeway, and I picked him up and
wow.
couldn't find his owner, so I took him in. Later on, I found where he was from, though. It was kind of a crazy story.
Wow.
And my corgi, my normal corgi, hated that dog so much. But when he died, he went into depression. And, I prayed about it. I was like, okay, why is this happening? He goes, I just really loved hating him.
Oh no.
Like, it was so much fun for him to hate him and just have something to hate in the household, because it was just him and I, and we went to all the horses together and all of that. And that was kind of fun and stimulating. But having an enemy was also exciting to him. Yeah.
Right? Like, it's better than nothing. And yeah, I do see the difference. Like, even with my own horse, I've had him in conventional settings where he's in his own in out and like that. And I notice his whole demeanor, he's quite sensitive horse, so he's he's very spooky. When he gets really ramped up and he gets really confined, suppressed, he starts to get very explosive, and he's really big, he's really athletic, and he needs to do that stuff, right? He needs to express himself, and he's very social. He loves to be touched. He loves to like mouth things, and he's very tactile, and he loves to just have every part of his body touched, and he's really affectionate. And it really did make me realize, like, yes, some horses, they start out like they don't seem like they want to be social, but I really have realized that, like, even the most antisocial horse, a lot of the time the reason they're antisocial is because they've never been given the opportunity to be social, and they don't know how, and so they react in these fearful ways, which could look like antisocial behavior, but they're actually trying to work it out and become integrated, right? So
Yeah.
so a lot of people, they're worried that their horses are going to get hurt and all of that, but here at home we have a track system, and I've gotten to learn quite a bit from Elise here. She's my roommate and colleague as well. And she's done about 14 integrations on this track system.
Go
And
into a little detail just in case people don't understand what a track paddock type situation
oh,
is.
sure. Yeah, so it is, it's not always necessarily a dry lot system, but this particular one, there's all different ones, but this particular one it's an all open concept. So you can design a track system or a paddock paradise, which a lot of people call them, based on what you already have. So if you have a conventional set up barn, like what Elise had here, she basically just knocked out all the walls in the barn, so it's one big shelter for everybody. And then the whole entire there's a forest and a trail through the forest, and everything's open, so there's like a whole entire fence line and track that runs all the way around the external part of the property, and our house is in the middle. And the horses have more like the waters at the top, and we do 2 free hay feedings. Like, we have hay nets everywhere and stuff, but we do 2 free hay feedings at the front of the property, so the horses have to walk all the way down there, and then they have to walk all the way back up to get their water. So they're moving, like if you put a pedometer on them, they're moving. Like, I think she did that with one of her senior horses, and he was doing at least 10K a day on this 3
Wow, you're kidding me.
Yeah. So it totally changes like how much they're moving. They're all on the track together, so they're in a herd on the track. And then we have like a tea station, so we do different kinds of tea for them, and they have like 4
Wait, stop the press. You have a tea station for
They
your
have a tea
horses.
station.
So
They
is
have
that
forest.
is that like brewed tea? Like
Yeah, we do
and
like
take a little
herbal
drink of
teas for
tea?
them. Yeah.
Or is it like just bulk herbs?
We do bulk clover and raspberry leaf teas for them. And then we have like some essential oils like copaiba and peppermint that we do in a big tea for them. And then we have like Bach flower remedies that we put in sometimes. And we have chaga tea from Microbiome from Adored Beast. So they get different choices, and they can just pick whatever ones they want. It's like a tea bar.
Well, it's like an equine charcuterie,
Yeah, it's
you
really
know?
cool. And then they have like hay, and we have like 4 different kinds of hay for them. And then they get alfalfa free hay twice a day, and it gets scattered all around under the trees so that they have to like move around, and there's piles everywhere and stuff. And so they have they do have a routine, but and there's lots to do on this system. And then part of it we have fenced off, so it's like a pasture, and we've put all these different, like planted all these different herbs in there so that they get out on there about an hour to 2 hours a day in the summer, like when it's nice. And then we just let them eat it down until it's kind of getting low, and then we close it up again. But it's amazing how much you can do with such a tiny space. And we have we have 6 bigs and 2 minis on the
Okay. And how many
and it's
acres?
not even close to too small for them. Like they're moving all over and have tons of space.
How many acres are we talking?
This is 3 acres total.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
like it seems
I might
tiny.
have to do this T-bar thing, but
Yeah, and then it's also really great because it's appropriate for like laminitic horses or horses who've had, laminitic or metabolic, because they're not on a pasture. They're moving constantly. So it really does help to get the weight off of them. They're social, so they're moving each other around all the time. And then we have a routine that kind of encourages them to move more and more, right? So it is because it's so much harder and so much more expensive to just have like 100 acres for your horses. That's so ideal, but it's not always possible. So it really does show like how much you can do in such a small space and provide such a amazing enrichment for the horses, and in smaller real estate, which I really think is super cool. And there's like Facebook groups with people all over the world. They have like paddock paradises, and they show all their like designs and all the different things they've done. And there's like free choice, like herb gardens, and like pools. In Texas, there was one with a pool and like crazy stuff. But you can do
that's cool.
whatever you want with it, which is really nice.
Yeah, I have a couple pastures, so I have probably a total of maybe 2.5, 3 acres. And so I just leave all the gates open and they go
Yeah.
wherever they want. And I leave all the paddocks open too. So I might go down there and see 2 horses in a box stall, and the pony's always outside. They never let her in. She's just mean. So,
Oh,
so
me. I know
the
that.
pony's always the odd woman out on that. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And their community, their herd instinct, it's so much more natural. But I do the charcuterie thing with my cat,
Oh yeah.
but I don't do it with my horses. Like I just basically throw whatever I think they need into their buckets every day. And I'm not like placing how much tea are you feeding your horses? Like are you doing like a quart, or are you doing
We
like little?
have, I don't know how big they are, but I'm gonna guess that they're probably like they're those big buckets that have the 2 handles on them.
Yeah.
They're like pretty big. They're
Yeah,
like
they're like
they
25
slide
gallons
around,
or
right? And
something.
you can pick them up with the 2 handles. So we have tires, and the buckets fit into the tires so they don't get dumped over. And we brew the teas in hot water, and like a little like a hot water in there, and then we've topped them up with
Cold water.
cloves like after they're put into, because they're heavy otherwise. So we put them in after they're brewed for about 5 minutes or whatever. And they're like waiting in a line for their tea. Like when we refresh the tea, they're like, oh, the tea's coming. Really, really cute.
That's
There's like
awesome.
a line up for, and then they're all like waiting for their turn. It's very
No
cute.
moringa though. You're like they will.
No, but you could do any of those. You could do anything you want.
Sarah, have you ever given moringa to a horse? It's like crack.
Yes, I have.
They
And I
taste the
do
fence
rotate it
line.
in their food. And yeah, if I have a really picky horse that I'm dealing with, yeah, the moringa is one that I go to for making it like more palatable. It's a
Yes.
good one. And it's a great, like, it has so many other benefits too. So So,
Absolutely, but most of my clients' horses pace the fence line on Moringa. I'm like,
oh,
okay, stop
really?
the Moringa. I'm like, what's back
Yeah,
there?
I really like it too. I love putting it in my smoothies and stuff. It's so yummy.
That's fun. That's so much fun. So because of these equine related diseases, and I have personally seen a huge up level of um benign gastric tumors that are like suffocating the horses.
Hmm.
Just in like the last 4 years, I saw it once in my whole career,
Yeah.
20, like 30 years, I had only seen it once, and it was a horse in Texas. And
Hmm.
then in the last couple of years, I've seen it multiple times where
Yeah,
it's
you're talking about
strangulating
right.
lipomas,
Right.
basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what's your thought about that?
Well, it definitely affects older horses a lot of the time. It probably has something to do, obviously, with genetics. But there are probably other reasons too. There's so many layers to, because I have known like several horses that have passed away from that as well. Um, all fairly senior. One of them not so senior, maybe like 16 or so. And yeah, it does seem to be getting more common. I do think that that has something to do with um you know there's generational trauma in people. Well, there's also generational genetic trauma in horses. So if you're feeding a certain way and you're managing your horses a certain way for several generations, they do pass that along as well, right? So it's like almost like, you know, 5, 6, 7 generations later, we start seeing, because right now, I think the climate of the world is not in favor of domestic horses because they're so big and they need so much space. So we're trying to cram them into sardine cans, feed them as cheaply as possible. All of these things are all additions onto that genetic trauma or inherited things that are happening, right? So I think it's partly energetic in that way, that it's like um, inherited, not necessarily even all genetic inheritance, but also energetic inheritance, and then diet and lifestyle. Um, and in horses, it is the digestive system and the metabolic system that is primary. That's their Achilles heel, right? So you can
Right.
either really, really, really support that and have a really resilient horse, um, because horses will be really, really healthy and live a long time if they have their needs met. But if they don't have their needs met, species specific wise, then you just increase. It's like in homeopathy, we have the term, the obstacles to cure, right? So that's basically what it is. It's, if you're keeping them in a stall, they're not moving, they're eating bagged food and one type of hay that's been sprayed with a bunch of chemicals, and they're getting trained, and they're sore. Maybe you don't know they're sore and you're riding them and their saddle doesn't fit, and whatever it is, right? Like all those things, like whatever they are, and depending on the resilience of that horse, they're going to break down at some point, right? So we all have that breaking point, and we all have a different level of resistance, and we are born into that partially because our parents pass on our microbiome to us. um they pass on all of their metabolic stress hormones to us, and same with horses, right? So even all the types of medications that we've had and our immune status at the time when we're conceived and born and things like that, they all play a part. So, and now
Well,
there's so much research going on all of those things. It's not just a theory, it's actually reality.
it's pretty interesting because a stallion can have so many babies per year, right? And, your studs can have hundreds of babies per year. But your mares, typically, unless you're doing all these embryo transfers, and that's a whole nother story of like possible disruption of the fetus. Like I was an AI tech. We did a bunch of embryo transfers. I felt like those babies were weaker.
Yeah, that seems to be what I've seen too. Like my horse was conceived that way. And I do see like the sensitivity in him and in those warm bloodlines because he's a warm blood. Um, there's so much money in them that they are basically genetically modifying them just like they are doing to our food and stuff, right? So they really are coming out all um, manner of ways, and they try to control, the temperament and the conformation and all of these things. But, for every perfect one that is born, we have all of these others that are born into whatever they, got handed. And it's not necessarily what is resilient for a natural life, right? Like for a life in a herd in the wild or whatever, right? So we have a lot of warm bloods with high-low problems, and that's also partially because they just grow so fast and then they get really crooked, right? So there, and then that just sets them up for discomfort, and then they can be reactive, and then so that's just one thing, like one example. But they, in all the other breeding programs for different breeds, they have like their standard. Same with dogs, right? Like we have
Yeah,
dogs that, in my opinion, they shouldn't be getting bred because it is an ethical issue. So, I mean, I think we
right.
really do have to look at our ethics of like why we're doing these things. And animals are not our slaves. They're not here to serve us. And they didn't ask to come here. And so we need to, with mine, I just try to live by example. And every time I learn something new, I do better because there's the standard way that we do things, but it doesn't always mean that that's what we should keep doing. And
Yeah.
when you see the statistics, I do have like 3 slides that I'm going to show you that are from a course that I recently created, and I'm working on a second one. Um, and I did compile some of the statistics so you can understand like how important this is and why I take it so seriously. So I can share that with you now if you
Yeah, I may do a co-host, so you can go ahead and share your screen. I do believe that every generation is getting weaker and weaker in the equine field. Like the amount of lamenesses and the amount of chronic illnesses, the autoimmune disorders, just like in humans. As a kid, maybe we're just flat out ignorant, but I don't think so. Like when I was 14, I got a gelding that was 14. We grew up together at the same age. He
Mhm.
passed at 33. He was still showing and winning. He finally had a stroke. But I mean, he was snarky, he was sound, he was low maintenance, and just an amazing horse. And I just am not seeing that anymore.
Yeah, and that was really one of those great moments to see that stuff when I met Elise and I saw her farm here, and she has quite a few rescue horses that have come from here and there. And her oldest passed away last year. Uh,
Hey, Sarah, I don't know if it's me or you, but I think you might be frozen. Hold on. If you can hear me, I hope you can. Let me see if I can chat with her. You guys, it's first that I'm not frozen and she is. Oh, never good. Um, so I think I'm gonna just keep talking until she comes back.
he
Okay. And it looks like her Zoom kicked her off. So I'll just chat about this. So in the equine industry, we are seeing an up level, an insane amount of GI tract issues, also including these strangulating lipomas, which are like benign tumors of fat that literally suffocate the GI tract, wraps around it, and kills horses. I've known horses as young as 8 years old being unalived because of that. And then ulcers are on the rise. And I do believe that we spray our hays with all these glyphosates, Roundup, which is disruptive to the gut microbiome. We are also always eating probably food exposed to Roundup. Even in the organic foods, there's probably some long-term resistance that is like being washed from field to field if there's rain or if they're irrigating, and there might have been some Roundup on that field years and years ago. I don't know the actual half-life on that, but the GI tract is such a big deal. And in horses, we are finally seeing people trying fecal microbiome transfers now because their gut is so long. Their GI tract is so crazy long. We can't do it rectally normally. Maybe Sarah knows a little more. Sarah is back, so I'm gonna make her a co-host so she can share her screen and add a spotlight. So Sarah, welcome back. Is your internet's you're still frozen, my friend. So Sarah, yeah, you might want to turn off your video to do your screen share, just to save some bandwidth. And I do love that photo.
Let's see. Okay.
Okay, I can hear you.
Fix this problem. I'm just going to move really quick so that we can possibly fix.
I'll keep chatting as you do this if you want.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think I never really thought about the genetic damage being passed on from generation to generation, but I think vaccines, I know when I was a horse trainer like 20 years ago, we were vaccinating every quarter. And I'm sure that was disruptive to the next generations on the mares. We were just fed this whole line that we had to protect our horses and more was better. And we never even considered the damage until we started seeing an abnormal amount of metabolic issues and Cushing's, PSSM, all these things that we didn't see much of 40 years ago. When I was a kid, I'm 60 now, so it was even 50 years ago. Our horses were sound, they were hardy, they went on for years, they got old, they were still good, they didn't have this massive amount of arthritis like the huge knees and hocks, and they were even being used hard. Like the gelding that I grew old with or up with, he was a reigning cow horse, and his joints were fused together, but they were not ginormous, and he did not have a large amount of arthritis, and he was like ridden hard. So something has
that is another, I mean, vaccinations can also be passed on generationally, right? Like all that inflammation, all that immune dysfunction. I feel like that's a thing that also happens. So can you guys hear me okay now?
Yeah, you're great.
Okay, great. I moved closer to the Wi-Fi.
The modem.
Yeah. Yeah, and quarterly, I don't know if they do it quarterly now, but there are some that they do every 6 months, like the flu rhino gets usually done every 6 months. And there are others that get done like annually. And then if you're showing, then it's a whole other thing, which is one of the reasons that I decided to not partake in that anymore.
Luckily, our vets are starting to honor titers and nosodes because they were
Oh,
seeing so much vaccine-related damage in show horses
yes.
lately.
Yeah, it's a problem. And then you're asking them to do the hardest job on earth. And then, we're damaging them with all this inflammatory assault and then riding them pretty hard.
And then
And
we're spraying them. We're spraying them with fly spray. We're spraying them with coat spray. I started telling my clients to do charcoal baths on their horses to suck out all the toxins they're being exposed to.
yeah.
And there was a tremendous change in them.
Yeah, well, my other company, Equisopco, we make a completely chemical-free fly spray that works just as well as the stuff with all the chemicals in it. It's also friendly for the bees because the fly spray, the normal fly spray, it kills the bees too. So I was like, I don't want to use this stuff. And then I had a couple of body workers that gave me some feedback saying that they were using the fly spray on the horses they were working on a lot, and they were feeling sick because they were spraying it so much and breathing it in. So yeah, I definitely understand that. And I think, because they have, endocrine disruptors in them, that's a problem. And then there's a lot of hay, like they're doing desiccation of hay, like drying hay with chemical agents as well, which is also an endocrine disruptor. Plus, we have alfalfa being sprayed with glyphosate and you know all these other horrible endocrine chemicals.
Is
Um,
that true in Canada also? Because in California, you can bear like maybe 5% of the hay is glyphosate free. The
mhm,
rest is pretty much sprayed. Nevada's better. Nevada,
mhm.
if you can get hay out of Nevada, they seem to be a lot more proactive about less chemicals.
Yeah.
But what about Canada?
Well, where I am, I'm close to the Washington like US border. So a lot of our hay actually comes from Washington. And my horse in particular was at a facility where I didn't really have a lot of control over the hay because they wouldn't let us bring our own hay in. And they were using Washington hay. And my horse lived there for 3 years and he had fecal water syndrome the entire time he was there. And my veterinarian kept saying that she thought it was the hay and that the hay supplier that we were using, she had used them at one point and her horse colic 3 times on this Washington hay. And she contacted them and said, like, what are you spraying on it? And then they told her that they were using these drying agents on the hay, and that was it decimates the hindgut. It just decimates it. So I moved him from that facility and I put him on their hay, which is from BC, and it's a no spray, like guaranteed no spray. And his fecal water cleared up within 2 weeks.
And some people say, I've heard it at least locally, is, oh, you can never cure fecal water syndrome. I'm like,
You
yes, you
can.
can. You totally can.
Can. And I've had a lot of different scenarios with that, where there's different reasons why they can get have that issue, but it's always a microbiome issue. It's a hindgut issue, right? So we also have horses that are having more frequency of like hindgut acidosis from overfeeding of grains or too many herbicides being processed through that system, right? So then it
Right.
completely alters the microbiome status, and it reduces the diversity, it reduces um, the richness and the diversity of the microbes that are able to function in there. And that also creates space for pathogenic ones to take up space. We all think of lactobacillus as such a healthy type of probiotic, but if lactobacillus is too high in the hindgut, it actually causes that hindgut acidosis, right? So And then we have them in paddocks that are sterile. There's no living soil, there's no living anything. And then we're cleaning it constantly, we're sterilizing everything. Their food is sterilized. They have no access to forage. So their environmental interfacing system is broken, right? Like they have no way for their bodies to be like, okay, this is the environment. And now I know exactly how to balance that, right? So that's why the gut is considered to be the one at like 85% of the immune system or whatever they've decided at this point. Because
which could change soon.
right, it could be all of it, well, almost all of it, right? Because if you really get into the microbial interfacing that the microbes do with your gut cells, which is like more well known in human research, but I think it's probably times a million in horses because of their surface area and how much of that is going on inside them. It's so much bigger than ours. And really we don't actually know, like even the world's top PhD gastroenterologists, veterinary equine enterologists only have so much information on horses and how their microbiomes function and what is a healthy microbiome in a horse. So all of that stuff is just it's not being researched in a way that's going to bring a lot of answers in a short amount of time, right? And then we have to refer to human science because there's so much more invested into that. And then companion animals, which horses actually are considered companion animals, but they're kind of on the fence of like livestock and companions. So, but there's lots of microbiome research going on in the dog space and the cat space, and then we're learning all of this. There are some really, really great studies, which I refer to regularly in my courses, on the difference between the hindgut status of a feral horse versus domesticated horses and horses that are managed domestically and in conventional spaces. And it's just, even that tiny amount of data is kind of shockingly, like they're so different. It's almost like you're not even looking at the same species. So
it's amazing. And I totally believe that.
Yeah. So I think that, um, I just feel like there's so much room for improvement, but until we understand why we need to do that, the why is kind of the first step. So that's sort of what I'm working on now, is trying to create some mini courses. And I do have some education that I give to my one-on-one clients as well, and coaching them on just the importance of like these free things that we all know common sense wise are really important for humans, like eating locally sourced organic foods, and like now biodiverse farming and homesteading is getting really popular. And like I grow a lot of herbs for my horses, and we use them rotationally and seasonally, which is also helping the horse interface with their environment on a seasonal level. And these are things that, like, if it's not on your radar, then you may not think they're important, but they are so important. And Julie has really helped me to understand that too, right? Like the importance of what is actually happening on the micro and the macro levels in nature. Like we can look to nature to see like, how is an ecosystem functioning? Because we are a tiny little micro ecosystem. And so are horses, right? So, and then with all our genomic makeup, that is how we should be interfacing with our environment. And we really have suppressed or taken all of that out of the picture to make it efficient, I guess. You know, I know it's huge. Like Dr. Brady's always talking about how, you know, the balanced and complete issue of, you know, the battle between dry food thinking and raw feeding, and, you know, like how, you know, really actually dogs and cats don't actually eat balanced. They don't get out their calculators and do some
And,
math before they,
and neither do we. I
right?
mean,
And now they're,
I probably do more math on my eating because I'm mostly vegan, and so I'm always like calculating how much maybe possible be and
yes.
my amino content and my protein. Like I literally calculate my protein content per day.
Yeah.
But but I think I'm the only one on the planet that does that.
Well, if you're doing a more specialized diet, then sometimes you do have to do that, and we do have to do that in animals too. Like even, you know, modified raw diets, and we have to make sure that they're getting everything that they need if they have allergies and they need, you know, to go on elimination diets and things like that. Then it's the same sort of thing. Like there are certain things that you need to make sure you're adding. But in, you know, in a healthy, normal, you know, outside of human realm, if we, because there's a huge debate on like what humans are supposed to eat too, right? But there isn't really that much of a debate anymore about what dogs and cats should be eating, nor horses. It's just been, you know, like the word forage in conventional terms means they get some hay. Like
Right.
that's not really, it's like non-specific. They get hay. So that's great. Like what is the hay?
No,
Where does it
it's
come
true.
from? How many species of grass is in there? Are there any other types of plants in there? Because in the new course that I just released, I did a full spread of like exactly how many species of plants that horses actually consume on their own in nature. And this study was done, it was published in a rangeland
Crazy.
paper. And it was an entire year of these researchers following these wild horses around and collecting their fecal matter and actually genetically decoding like which species of plants they were eating and how it changes over the seasons. And they found a minimum of 40 species of plants, and at least 8 different types of grasses, and then everything else besides those 8 types of grasses. That's like 32 different kinds of plants, like trees and shrubs and leaves and roots and all of these things that like we just take all of that away from them. And that is also a sterilization thing where if they don't have those little inputs, it's like us where we don't have to eat a ton of um, fruit, but if we get a little bit, we get a lot of vitamin C, right? So that's just one little tiny example, but the more diverse your eating is, we know in people that they've changed the whole entire layout of like how to eat food. Because, you know, in Canada, we used to have this very weird, conventionally driven um, health food guide. Like, what are you supposed to, here's the food groups. And they probably had a similar one in the States,
Yeah,
right?
the food
Here's the
pyramid,
grains,
right?
and then you're supposed to have this many of this and this many of this. But now it's like eat lots of variety, lots of colors, stay on the outside of the grocery store, don't eat the stuff from the middle of the grocery store. Packaged foods and processed foods are a no, or to a minimum. Don't eat a lot of sugar, drink tons of water. Like it's very simple, right?
Right.
And it's all about diversity is how you get your needs matched nutritionally.
Right.
And
And
you
then
know,
horses, we have this like synthetic grain. So we have all these pelleted feeds now. And it's
yeah,
really strange because when I first started doing body works in Texas, everybody fed whole grains. They fed barley or oats or corn or whatever.
yeah,
And their horses were the healthiest, least amount of autoimmune issues.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, they got on this processed grain bandwagon, which is mostly soy. And,
Yes.
we've noticed in EPM horses that it actually blocks the treatment of EPM, soy does. And I think it excites parasites. So there's something really strange about equine and soy reaction that I'm just like, no soy, none.
Well,
Yeah,
the big one, the other one is that crop is sprayed so heavily with so many herbicides that it really isn't even, and it's genetically modified beyond belief. So it
exactly.
doesn't really even count as, it's a filler and it provides protein, but the type, and it also has all those
Estrogens, phytoestrogens.
phytoestrogens and stuff like that. So if you're, it's not an appropriate, it's not a species appropriate source of protein for horses. And the thing about the native or ancestral equine diet is that their whole body system has developed, their digestive system and their metabolism has developed in relation to not having a lot of protein in their diet, and not having a lot of fat in their diet either. Um, so their bodies, like their hind gut, is actually able to make a lot of their fatty acid like needs, and their amino acids can be met, but they have to be met through variety. And that's actually what happened when the ruminants and the hindgut fermenters separated their, on their evolutionary journeys. Like ruminants are designed to eat like a bulk amount of a specific like few types of plants, which you see in cows. They can consume one thing and they're pretty good, right? And that they actually select very rigidly and they eat in excess of certain things. But horses don't do that because their evolutionary overlap was that they didn't want to compete because they were much smaller at the time, 200 million years ago or whatever. They were tiny. They were like little dogs, right? So they did not have the size or the presence to be competing with these larger ruminants that had already evolved. So, and it's also not as safe to have a smaller herd, right? You're more prone to getting eaten. So what they did is they started to diversify and eat the stuff that the ruminants were not eating. And that's actually like because that was so many different things, they were like, okay, now this is in season and we're eating this now. And they ate around the ruminants. So they were able to stay in with the ruminants and around the ruminants and eat with them and not compete for food and not compete for space.
Amazing.
Um,
Interesting that it's symbiotic.
yeah, and then we see that in nature all over the place, like all over the place. You watch Planet Earth, and that's all it's ever about, right? Is all these like symbiotic relationships that nature creates, and it's all about these cooperative relationships. So, and that's how the ecosystem works. That's how mushrooms and trees have that, like all of these things exist in nature, and we've kind of removed all of that as important. And after studying all of this stuff from the perspective of because my start was in wild animal management. I realized like we can't actually change, like we can't change them for what this is what they are. And the reason that they are like this is because they evolved like this for like millions of years. And in 200 years, we can't like just totally change everything and expect them to just adapt to that, right? Like they compensate, they don't adapt to that. Because that's not evolution, right? Like evolution takes time. And especially with like the gut system of the horse, that is an evolutionary miracle. And like we have to honor it because it didn't happen in 200 years, and we have to actually adapt to that. We can't just be like, okay, this is what we think they should have because it's cheap or
Yeah.
because they're expensive to feed because they're big. Well, yeah, well, we were the ones that decided to have them. So
Well, and Sarah, tell me about fish oil. It drives me
uh,
crazy. Is
yeah.
that species appropriate? Like, are horses gonna go out there and eat fish, or like the deserts that dried out and they had like seashells all over the desert? Maybe there's some natural fish stuff there, but I hate that idea.
I know.
What's
And there's so many reasons why fish oil is wrong and not in my wheelhouse at all. And I don't recommend it. A, it's totally unsustainable. B, it's often rancid and actually causes the opposite. It causes a lot of inflammation in the body when it's not given, basically fresh, right?
right?
Uh, which it never is when it's in plastic and it's separated from the fish. Um,
Well, and
B,
then people store it in their hot tack rooms. So how many bottles of Omega Shine or whatever they're feeding, and I'm muscle testing and it tests negative, and they're like, but my horse eats it and it's nice. I'm like, let's smell it. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's rancid.
really, I know, and I have a really sensitive sense of smell, and I can always smell when it's off, and it's often the case. Like it's usually off. And the thing about adding fat to horses' diets is also really tricky because my take on that is when a horse is a hard keeper or not being able to keep on weight, partially it's often like a lot of these studies that show that it's so good are because of like in performance horses because they are under so much pressure, so much they expend so much energy. It's actually completely abnormal for them to be doing what they're doing.
Right.
And so they do actually have higher caloric needs. And so, and also on top of that, we have the problem of these like 90% of performance horses are having some sort of gastric ulcer problem. And probably some kind of GI disturbance, which makes it harder for them to absorb the calories that they're getting from their food. So we have like double whammy there. And then, with the hindgut, horses can create short chain fatty acids from fiber. Like their gut, that's what their gut actually does. And that's how they get their fat. So we don't need to be giving them all of these omega-3s because they actually can make them in their gut. If
Well,
the
and they don't have gallbladders. Their liver, I mean, I don't hear a lot of vets talk about liver, but I really think a lot of their livers are damaged. And
yes.
so I feel like that's a big issue that's not being addressed at
Well, and
all.
if you're feeding a lot of fat, you can cause a lot of stress to the liver as well, right? So we have a lot of people feeding like high amounts of rice bran too, and like these extruded feeds that have plant fats like seed oils and canola
Oh,
oil and
yeah.
all of these types of things, which are like just a complete disaster, right? So we have many layers of reasoning why initially you'll see that the horse has such a shiny coat and it's so great and la la la, and there are research studies that show that DHA and EPA will reduce inflammatory problems in the joints in horses particularly. We can see that on, diagnostics before and afters, right? But just because that happens, um, why was it like that in the first place? Why is a 10-year-old horse having like, pre-arthritic problems? Partially it's because they're, the way that what we use them for. Partially, it's because they're not moving enough. They're standing in one place, which reduces the integrity of all of their joints. The gut actually plays a huge role in how much inflammation is systemically happening. And if there's a lot of repetitive movement to tissue, it will increase inflammation. And then if we have a damaged immune system that can't modulate inflammation, then we have that's when we start to get that trigger stacking where we have like early onset osteoarthritis. And that's a huge problem in horses too. But it is still related to the same species appropriate management and food. Um, there's just so much that we need to change in how we relate to horses. And like, I was just saying the other day, like, if I feel like in the future, because I'm like, I'm 42. If I can't keep my horses in a way that is honoring them as horses, then I probably won't have them. Which is like, where I'm just personally at. I can't use them for my own selfish reasons anymore, because now I'm like, oh my God, like this is just, even riding them, like Kingsley likes to go and do things. But the way that we do it is completely different now, right? Like we don't do horse shows anymore. We just have fun. And, if he's really uncomfortable with something, I listen. And, all of those things just play a huge part. And I won't ride him if he, or any horse, I won't force them to do my agenda if I'm not meeting theirs. Like, why, how can I ask them to do all that stuff when they're in jail and they're not hungry and their guts hurt and they're bored and they're,
Your
like
back
there's so
hurts.
many, there's so
Yeah.
many things that are wrong with that. And if you were to like put it in reverse and have a human in that situation, like it would, you like the human rights activists would be down your throat, right? So
CPA would be at your front door.
yeah, so if you had kept a kid like that, you'd be hooped.
Yeah.
So it really is, for me, it's just changed so much because I have had, some really big life lessons with my horse about like in the health realm and also in the training realm, where, I had trainers that were not good for me or my horse, and we ended up having some really severe behavioral problems and a lot of like back pain and just all the cascading things that can happen with that. And then the labeling of the horse of it's being difficult or it's dangerous or it's a bad horse or what behavioral problems, even if you can't find it on an x-ray or whatever, like, are you meeting this horse's needs? That's first primary thing. Like, is this horse living in a situation where it, like, we can eliminate some of these things from the scenario of why this might be happening? And
So Sarah, I'm going to ask you, what are the gut diseases or disorders that you're seeing, that you're learning about? Like, I feel like we've got, nobody really talks about leaky gut in the equine field. I think you are one of the first people to talk about it. I know Julie has always talked about it in the membership,
yeah,
and now it's finally catching on. We've got
yeah,
the strangulating lipomas, we've got a colic, we've got tons of ulcers, hindgut ulcers,
yeah,
front ulcers. What
yeah.
else are you seeing? I mean, our gut microbiome disruption. Are you doing fecal transplants? And then also a pet peeve of mine is prebiotics with horses. I'm like, fiber, hey, is a prebiotic. You do not need to buy a prebiotic for your horse if you're providing pasture or anything like that. What are your thoughts? Sorry, I had to throw it.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, those are all great points. So yeah, the statistics that I found, I could try and show, it seems like the internet's working better now. So I'm gonna try again and share,
And I'm going to remove my spotlight to help you maybe.
because I do have the statistics here. Screen sharing paused. Maybe you have to pause
Did I
it.
make you are a co-host, so it
Who
should
can
be
share?
okay.
Oh, is that gonna let me do?
Let me see. I can make you a host if you want to be a host, and then just make me a host afterwards.
Sure. I don't know why it says this. Reason. Let me.
I had somebody last week screen share and it wasn't a problem. So hopefully this is not one more new thing with Zoom.
All participants. That. That.
It says that you started screen sharing.
Oh. Yeah, it says it's paused, but I don't know how to unpause it.
Let me see.
Not do it. Anyway, okay, I'll just tell you. It's easier. So, the scariest one that I found was that the
Sarah, go ahead and quit screen sharing because now you're a host and I can't control it.
oh right, yes. Sorry. So how do I get you
You're
to
gonna click the three little dots on my upper right hand corner. And then there'll be a drop down window and you'll have an option of like spotlighting or making a co-host. You're like Zoom takeover.
right? It doesn't have three dots.
Up in the upper right hand corner, if you hover over it, or you can go another way to participants and hover over more. Oh, I can reclaim host. I grabbed it. Okay,
Oh,
you're groovy.
perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll just read these statistics to you. I do have all this in my course too, in all the courses, the gut related courses that I'm going to be putting out. We will be you'll have access to all of this stuff and then all of the research that I used to create these stats as well. Um, in terms of colic, colic is the #1 cause of death in horses, statistically. That's
And how often, like when I was younger, they usually said every 3 minutes a horse dies of colic. And then I can't find that statistic anywhere anymore.
yeah, I don't know about that one, but I do know that there's two big meta-analysis, which is where I went to go and get my information because there's like 200 studies associated with each meta-analysis. And there's one that was done in North America and then one that was done in the UK. And they both are having the same similar statistics that 70 to 90% of pleasure and performance horses have gastric ulcers, which is a big gastric ulcer study. And then like what can happen because of that gut dysfunction. Um, we see horses that have had two or more incidences of colic, even though they may be, not as severe, if they're colicking on and off, and it's something that they tend to do, that's a real sign that they probably do have ulcers somewhere along the digestive system. And that statistically, the more times they colic, the more at risk of death they are. So because we have this huge number of gastric, like 70 to 90% of pleasure and performance horses have some level from 1 to 4 grading of gastric ulcers. So if that was a human statistic, we will all be like falling on the ground, right?
Now, I'm going to throw in another question about dogs because I personally think my dog had an ulcer. And I asked my vet about it. I'm like, I think my dog has an ulcer. And he's like, oh, we don't talk about that. I'm like, well, why not? Like,
weird.
and so I ended up giving him as much as I didn't want to give him, but I tried herbs and stuff, and I finally bit the bullet and gave him like omeprazole, or Tagamet.
Although
Or,
omeprazole, yeah.
yeah. And he was night and day different, like so much better. It broke my heart. I was like, there you go. Why aren't we talking about dog ulcers?
Yeah, that is something that can happen with dogs too. Because of their digestive system anatomy and physiology, it is a little bit less common for them. But I have a lot of cases like in my one-to-ones that are doing a lot of like bile vomiting and morning time vomiting, and what can happen with that is on ultrasound you can actually see the erosion of the esophagus and the esophageal tissue, if that's happening chronically over a long period of time, because the acid is basically like eating away at the tissue. So when that is happening, then yes, they are extremely at risk for ulcers. And even with dogs that are not actually regurgitating, there are some dogs that will just do the like lick, lots of licking and gulping. Some of them will lick the carpet, and have these strange sort of behaviors, going randomly on and off their food, having in and out bouts of vomiting, and mostly upper GI stuff like belching, all of these upper kind of GI issues. They can also have diarrhea and things, but that is, again, it's very similar to humans and horses, is often stress related and diet related.
Right.
Um,
And I
and
actually, it was a ketogenic diet that I had him on, and I didn't realize that was a short-term approach. Is I was feeding him long-term ketogenic because we were battling a spinal cord tumor. And
oh,
now,
right.
now I know better, is that is a short-term pulsing type diet. That is not a diet that an animal should be living on by any means. But I think
Yes.
these raw feeding circles just preach a lot of ketogenic. And
Yes. Yeah. And I use it with caution with clients, and I do use it with certain pathologies, like animals are having certain pathologies, we will go for it, like seizures and that sort of stuff. But with animals that have gastric reflux issues or acid issues, they will produce more bile and more bile acids in relation to fat. So the more fat you feed, the worse that can become. And it's not always something you can see, but that is physiologically what's happening. So that makes sense that that could cause that issue in a long-term ketogenic, like if you're feeding that for a year or whatever, right?
right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for addressing that, because I just think nobody's talking about it.
Well, all these things are so tricky because there's only these little pockets of information about some of these types of diets, and a lot of veterinarians are not really versed in nutrition in the first place. So we don't have a lot of clinical data about it, and we don't have a database. We don't have any researchers working on it, and so and it's not on the radar because they're going to do is throw omeprazole at it, and that's not the newest drug, and it's not expensive, so it's off its
Yeah.
now. So
Okay, so let's get back to the horses, because I want to know what you think about ulcer management and all these other things. There's so
yeah,
much I want to talk to you about, and we're already at the 7 o'clock moment. So I'm like,
yeah,
oh, Sarah,
yeah. Well, we can always jump on again too. I'm happy
cool.
to come back. Um, but yes, that's something that drives me a little bit mental too, because we don't have really long-term solutions for ulcers, and this whole behavior of just putting your horse on GastroGuard before horse shows and pre-thinking that you should put your horse on omeprazole before you do a stressful thing. Well, why are you doing that stressful thing? If you think your horse is getting ulcers because it's stressed out, then why are you still doing the thing? Like, that's kind of the elephant in the room, the bigger issue. The other problem with omeprazole is that the action of omeprazole is to reduce acid. So
Yeah.
in a system that requires, like, that is supposed to be taking in a high amount of fiber, that would literally not, we would not as a human not be able to digest the, like, wood and bark and these mature grasses and these things, that they would just come out whole, or we would get total impaction. And the reason that horses can break those down is partially because of that acid, that very powerful system, and also all that hindgut fermentation. So when we are having this chronic input of omeprazole, we're actually reducing stomach acid and actually reducing their ability to break down their food. And even in conventional terms, if we're not talking about anything to do with holistic, they know, and it's veterinarians are taught that if you are using omeprazole long term, you do increase your risk of impaction colic, because they can't actually break the fiber down and push it, like, it can't go through, right? So we have that going on. They also use
That's, you know, it's so ironic because so many people, when a horse colics, they go on chemical management for ulcers too. And so
yeah.
it's,
Yeah, and if you have a horse, like, if they do get scoped, which is a whole other thing, and I'm not totally 100% on board with that, because it's very invasive, but if they're confirmed that they have, like, stage 4 ulcers and they're bleeding and they're necrotic and that kind of thing, they've been there for a very long time, and we have to figure out why this is happening, period. Like, end of story. But yes, they also do have to go on omeprazole for a little while, because they literally, like, if you have them in that same system and you're just keeping them in their same environment, their same food and everything, they can't, they're going to die, is literally what's going to happen. They have holes in their gut, right? So, and there are incidences that happen where the horse can become septic because they get a hole right through into the into the cavity of their bodies, and then stuff starts leaking in there, right? So so this is really all, like, super important to understand that, like, omeprazole, it is important in some situations, and if you have a really serious issue with ulcers, you do have to use it. It is a good thing to use. However, it's not something you should be falling back on, because if your horse has that severity of an issue, that's a life-threatening issue that you have to make some major changes. That this is, they're like, you can't just keep doing what you're doing. And then we also have sucralfate, which also gets used quite regularly in those situations, which is a coating agent. It's basically like a really fancy
peptide,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the action of that is to actually coat like, act as a mucosal lining, where the hole in the ulcer, that erosion it's gone through the mucosal lining and into the epithelial tissue, and that's gets coated with the sucralfate, so that it has a double action with the omeprazole, reducing the acid and causing a barrier against the acid, so that the tissue has a chance to heal. So those two drugs are really well studied, well known. They don't have a lot of short-term side effects. They're not really immune suppressive. So in those senses, the only thing with sucralfate is that they don't really absorb their nutrients properly if they're on sucralfate. So you have to time, if you're doing supplements and things like that, you have to time it with your giving of the sucralfate. So you should get all your supplements before you give the sucralfate.
Oh, good to know. And then long-term GastroGuard is bone damage.
Yeah, it can, because all of that stuff, it doesn't allow them, their digestive system, to work properly and absorb what they're eating. So that's a whole other thing, right? It's like, and then like the reason why it's happening in the first place is probably there's a microbiome imbalance. There's probably other imbalances in different chambers. The cecum is so misunderstood, and it's such a huge part of the horse's digestive system. They have the biggest, like, ours is just our little appendix, right? Our little end of our whatever, but theirs is like, it's huge. It's this big. And so that does a whole bunch of, it has its own microbial system before it goes into the hindgut. So we have all these chambers that do all their jobs. And if something's not working properly, then a lot of times it's cascade in all the areas and the surrounding organs, like the viscera, the liver, all those things that you were talking about, right? So, and then we have like horses with back pain and pain in their SI and blah, blah, blah. Like, then, like, is that visceral pain, or is that, like, where is that originating from? And because we have this big vagus nerve that goes from the brain all the way into the viscera, then if we have inflammation in the gut, then we have all this nervous system inflammation that's radiating out of there and can go all over the body, right? Like, so it's, and then, there's the gut brain connection, and like how much behavioral issues we see with horses that have gut issues because they can't self-regulate because they don't have that ability. Their nervous system is totally destroyed, right? So there's so much like it, that's why it's called holistic, because we look at all
The
of the
whole
things.
system. And that's the cool thing about iridology is
Yeah,
the fact
same
that
thing.
iridologists have been preaching gut health since the start of like conventional iridology in the 1800s. And
Yeah,
the gut health and the nervous system are like right on top of each other.
they
And
are. Well, yeah, they overlay like literally into each other, right? So yeah, there's no, if you got a problem with one, you got a problem with the other. And we have, on the behavioral front, we have a lot of horses that are just, stressed, stressed, stressed. And then so is it the chicken or the egg? Is it the stress, or is it the ulcers, or is it the, like, you got to fix all of those pieces. And that's why I always go back to the species appropriate stuff, because like those are all obstacles to cure if that's not what they're getting,
so
right?
what is species appropriate for you?
For
I
horses,
know what I think, but yeah, for horses,
yeah.
tell me what your
Um,
thoughts are.
Well, from all of the information that we have on, how, like, there are wild horses that exist on the earth now, and then we have lots of fossil records as well for millions of years, and we know that, only, all of this conventional food has existed for 150 years, maybe 200, if we're lucky, and it does not resemble the ancestral diet of horses. So if you, I can give some visuals for you can post.
I'd love to post them. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, because it will help you. I kind of also did like a chart of like the food groups of horses and how they're actually supposed to eat. And then we also have the seasonal component. So we have, like I said, about 40 different species at least of plants that that animals will forage through. Like, even dandelion is so underrated. Dandelion leaves, flowers, the
True.
roots,
Yeah.
hugely nutritious. And horses that live conventionally, they don't have this in their diet, and they will in the springtime choose those over the grass, right? So and then they eat the grass, even changes seasonally. And so in the spring, yes, there's lots of sugar technically in the new grass, but they're not foraging just grass when it's springtime. They are like after the dandelions and the leaves and
The nettle's starting to come up then too.
right? So
Yeah.
all of these other plants and herbs that we know are highly nutritive, highly beneficial for the gut lining, all prebiotic fibers. They're all different types of prebiotic fibers, which increases the diversity of the microbes that are able to live because they're having different diverse plants and fibers going in. And so, and you see, like, there's studies that show the microbiome status of feral horses versus domestic horses that eat conventionally and live in sterile settings. And like I said, it's so different. And, you know, across the board, I found research in horses, humans, and dogs showing that microbial diversity is equal to biological resistance. And that's like cited in the conclusion of all of these studies.
Wow.
So when we think about it, it's not just about like protein and fat and fiber. I mean, that's
Right.
so
And then, Sarah, what about a fecal microbiome transfer for horses? Like I've tried to do that on a foundering horse. I couldn't find anything on it. So I just tried to use one of my own horses and we did it orally because their GI tract's too long to do it rectally.
It
And
is. So they actually, I saw a post from a girl. I'll have to find her again, but she did a post on poo tea, which
I
is,
saw that
have you
TikTok.
seen that? Yeah.
Yes, and I was totally fascinated by that. And I was wondering if you've done that.
I never have, but I do know a few people who have done it, and for fecal water, which has resolved one out of the two cases that I know. But it again, you have to be selective about whose poo you're going to be using for that. So,
Exactly.
in that sense, these horses were out on like 160 acres, and they were foraging, and they had access to all those microbes. The reason why horses get fecal water is generally because they have less diversity. So everything that you change, and even the weather with fecal water can change how bad their fecal water is, right? So,
Interesting.
and certain times of the year it rains, then they get worse, and all of these things, right? So, but the major problem is the diversity problem, right? So, the yes, we can use probiotics. Yes, we can use fecal transplants, but those are a little bit harder to get right. So a lot of times I just said, this is a free solution for everybody. Give your horse access to living soil and as many prebiotic plant fibers as you possibly can that are species appropriate. So things that they would naturally eat. And if you can mirror that with the seasons, and you can get a rhythm for what is growing when and what horses are actually selecting themselves during different seasons, which is they know what to do if they just have it in front of them.
Yeah.
Um, then that is usually will take some time. But sometimes I get fast results. Like with my horse was quite quick. It was about a month. And he was like, good. And
That's
I was
amazing.
taking pictures of his poo because I was like, ah, and so I think that is like, for me, that's what species appropriate. And you know, adding these things in, whether like wherever and however you can. Um, you know, there's many different ways to do that. Like I said at the beginning, this track system, we have 3 acres here, but it's fully functional, and these horses are moving all the time. They're surrounded by trees. They do have a forest, like a 1 acre forest, all kinds of stuff growing in there. They eat the bark off the trees, they eat the dirt, they eat the, you know, they just have access to all this biodiversity. Um, and
Well,
also
and they
the
probably eat
social.
each other's poop. Lee Black just said that every foal she's ever had eats the dam's poop.
Yeah, they tend to do that. And also like even when they're grooming each other and they're all of those things are microbial, like they're passing things back and forth. So even if half the herd goes in the forest and half of them's out in the pasture and they, some of them are looking out for each other and then they all come back together and then the guys who are in the forest start grooming the horses that weren't in the forest and then they all kind of pass stuff around and it's like that's how they do it. That's just how.
Right. That's so interesting because, in my dog, I ran a test and his sensitivities and his gut health was great, but his sensitivities matched mine perfectly.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I want, obviously he and I are sharing our microbiome, our skin
Yeah.
microbiome, and also probably internally he sleeps on the bed with me. But I also wonder how much of my horses are receiving my own microbiome, which is terrifying actually. But yeah.
Well, yes, we do pass those things back and forth. I do feel like horse people, well, and there's a lot of studies in kids, like kids that live on farms are much less likely to develop asthmatic and allergy type issues because they have that biodiversity, because they're touching dogs who are going rolling in the dirt, eating the horse poo, and then they come in the house and lick your face, and so early on, children are getting access to things that yes, maybe we think are quote unquote dirty, but they're actually that's the interfacing system. That's
They're
what makes it
inoculating
easy.
themselves naturally. Yeah.
So
So,
all biological creatures do this, whether they live in the ocean or the forest or wherever. And in the 90s, I remember my mom like with the Lysol and the Glade plugins and all these things in our house. And I have asthma. But
I
it's
do too.
mostly fixed now because I realized why it was happening. Um, but yeah, there's certain things that my body has saved antibodies to during that period. So I have to be a bit careful with certain things. But for the most part, the elimination of all of that sterilization, all of those chemicals. I changed all my, even my candles. I make them myself. I make my own soap. Like I
Wow.
do as much.
Sarah, can we get a hold of your fly spray? Like, can that transfer to the US?
Yeah, the website is not set up for US ordering, but if you email me, I can give you all the information for that. Then I can process the shipments just manually. Yeah.
And then if we're interested in your course, how do we get a hold of that?
Yeah, I will give you a link to the one that's currently available. It's on the Equitable platform, Equitable Canada, which is a bodyworking platform in Ontario.
Cool.
And I did a little one for them. It's like a 3 module. It's like really cost effective to take. And then I'm doing a slightly bigger one for the EQ Therapeutics platform, which should be out by the end of this month. And then I'm going to be also releasing an herb selection one. So we're going to go into all the herbs that horses naturally eat, the ancestral diet, all the herbs that wild horses eat, which is actually really when if you're an herbalist, you'll just go crazy for it because it's like so nerdy. It's like horses are just herbalists, really. They just know all this stuff, but they didn't go to school. They just know it.
Yeah, it's in their DNA.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I have a lot of cool herbs that naturally grow here. I've never seen plantain till this year, and this year I had a ton of red clover. Like
oh,
I could
great.
have probably harvested how much red clover I had, but the years before not. So it's so interesting. Um,
Very.
yeah, how the earth provides different things in different years.
Well, that is also interfacing tactic because different plants have different purposes. They do different things in the soil. So, if you have very depleted soil, you'll have different plants growing initially, and then you see that in all the biodiverse farming projects. They have like a completely different landscape for the first 2 years while the soil just regenerates. All these weird weeds grow, and you just have to leave them to do their thing so that the soil can actually house other stuff, right? So it's like a whole entire process. And I love Dr. Zach Bush. He teaches on all that stuff on the farmer's footprint. There's so many people doing it. There's that really great documentary called The Big Little Farm on Netflix, which is just absolutely fascinating and amazing. And all of those things are kind of like that bird's eye, like zoomed out, like, okay, so this is how we actually do like a biodiverse farm. But in that, like, you can also do biodiversity in your horse. You can do it in your dog. You can do it in yourself, right?
Right.
We're like a little mini, like we can treat ourselves like a little farm too and take care
Yeah,
of
and I like that. Instead of your body being a temple, your body's a farm.
a
How
little
cool
farm.
is that? So
So,
last year I
yeah.
got to see Rodney Habib live, and
Oh,
his
great.
it was really good. And he put up all the four longest living dogs. And he goes, there's one thing all these dogs had in common, and they all slept outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I know the Maggie, who was in the one in Australia, I think. She lived on a dairy farm. She ran all around all day. She ate placentas from cows that were giving birth. She drank raw milk. She had her little cycle that she did. She just choose to go sleep under this tree at this time of day, and then she'd go run after the tractor, and then she just had freedom and forage and friends. That's the
Love
same maybe
that.
for everybody, right? So
So we come full circle. And I love that freedom, forage, and friends. I think that's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
Sarah,
that's
thank you for
important.
your time. And
Yeah, thanks so much. I was longer than I thought it was going to be.
well, we can talk forever.
For hours, I know.
I know. We can geek out easily, my friend. And
Totally, totally.
please let us know when your other courses are coming up. And I'm excited about that herbal course.
Yes, that's going
Yeah.
to be fun. And if you're interested in seeing what I'm doing in little pieces, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook because I realized that the biggest reach I've gotten with my videos my reels that I've done are all I started this thing called Forage Friday, and I do I like follow the horses around and look at what they're eating, and then
Cool.
I film it and then I circle it on the video, and I get people to guess what the plant is.
Oh,
And
good.
and I've been watching horses for about 3 years now, watching them select all these plants. And then, learning the herbalism side, and not just the nutritive parts, but the medicinal parts as well. And realizing like how brilliant, these and horses will like eat around very specifically certain things and then eat very specifically certain plants, and they do it at certain times. Like the plant is this mature and then it eats this plant for 3 weeks and then it moves on to the next one that's coming up, right? So that's kind of going to be the rhythm of the course, so that you know there's going to be a scale of how into it you can get, but the more into it you can get, the I think the more success everyone's going to have with the health of your horses. So that's
I'm
that's
so
my
excited. Thank you. Yeah, I watch my horses eat chickweed all the time. They love the chickweed.
They're smart.
Yeah, they are smart. And I have some commercial grass growing out that was pre-planted before I moved in, and I don't really love that. So,
No, if they have the choices, it's interesting to see what they choose.
yeah, it's super cool. Thank you for your time, sir. It's always a pleasure, and I look
Hi,
forward to
you're
you coming
welcome.
back.
Yeah, I would love to come back, and I will email you all the information to post for everybody so that you can find me.
You're also in the group, so if you want to post that, go ahead.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Yes, I can
Yeah,
definitely,
you're like, I didn't even know
yeah,
that.
do that. I have the ability to do that.
Okay, you guys have a great, great week. I tried to post a joke last week and it got blocked by Facebook. It wasn't bad either. I don't know what happened there.
Oh,
So,
face.
um, and then next Monday we have Sarah McKeegan coming back showing hands-on dog massage. So jump on the Zoom with us and get your dogs going, and we're gonna massage our dogs on a group group thing, I guess a lesson, but it's just gonna be fun. So
Right.
I know my dog will love it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, you
Well,
guys take care and have an awesome week.
you too, Poppy. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.